On behalf of the Arts and Education Council, I'm Booker T. Scruggs, and welcome to Point of View. Our program today comes to you from the video facilities on the campus of the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Of course, UTC is a part of the University of Tennessee's statewide university system, which this year marks its 50th year of desegregation, whereby in 1961, the University of Tennessee in Knoxville admitted its first African American students. So in recognition of February as Black History Month, today on Point of View, we're going to reflect on the history of student diversity at the University of Tennessee. And more specifically, we're going to bring matters closer to home, and we're going to focus on UTC and its history of serving a diverse student population. We have with us as our guest today from the administration at UTC, Mr. Yancey Freeman, who is the UTC Director of Admissions and Recruitment. We also have Dr. Brian Samuel, who is the Director of Equity and Diversity. And also on our set, we have Ms. Carolyn Brown, Carolyn Tinker Brown, who was the first African-American female in the band here at UTC. And we also have with us today the Chancellor of the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. We're going to talk with him in just a moment. And we also have with us Ms. Dr. Stinson Stevens, who is one of the first African-American persons to live in the dormitory at UTC. And we have Mr. Chris Davis, who is with the Office of Minority Affairs. So those of you in the audience, give our guests a hand. Okay, let's begin by talking with the Chancellor. Chancellor Brown, welcome to Point of View.
Thank you, Mr. Scruggs. It's a pleasure for me to be here.
Okay, very good. We're talking diversity, and you have been involved with other institutions prior to coming to the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, where diversity was not quite the thing back in those days,
That's
right?
correct. That's correct.
Okay, what happened, or what did you do to sort of enhance or to facilitate this whole idea of diversity in the institutions where you were prior to UTC?
Well, I should say to your audience and to the viewers that I grew up, like many of us in the South, in a segregated town in Northeast Tennessee. I had never gone to school with a person of color until I came to the University of Tennessee at Knoxville in the late 60s. So diversity was something that I learned as I got into my own life journey and came to value it and treasure it and knew that it added a great strength to any institution. So then when I got to be an administrator at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, I was sought out by my colleagues to serve on the Chancellor's Task Force on the Climate for Race and Gender. And I was extremely proud that they saw me as someone who could be fair and just in my thinking and to make recommendations that would help further the campus. Just before I got here, I was at a small campus that actually ended up being 50% minority and 50% Caucasian. And again, I will tell you that for that campus, that was a great, great strength. It made that campus a special place to live and work. So I feel that way here.
Right.
I'm extremely proud of the fact that we do have a long history of diversity. But we're not where we need to be, Booker. We still need to work hard on diversity at this campus. We have, I think, a good racial mix on this campus, but it's not in every place that it needs to be. Some places we have more minority folks than we have white folks. In other places we have far, far too few. So we have a lot of work to do, but I will just say that I am committed to strong diversity at UTC in any way that I can promote it.
Okay. Now, a few years ago, there was this gear situation, the gear racial situation, which actually started back in the latter part of the 60s, where someone indicated that there were separate colleges, but they were not equal colleges for both blacks and whites.
Correct.
Now, only recently, I guess, 2006, it was eliminated.
That's right.
And the university was charged with actually some initiatives in order to address that particular lawsuit.
That's absolutely right.
Where do we stand now in terms of all of that?
Well, luckily, what we've been able to do is to keep in our state budget some of the money that was devoted to the Geyer case. It's now called post-Geyer money, but it's equity, access, and diversity money that's still in the state budget. I'm hopeful that our state legislature will see its way clear to keeping that money in our budget because it's a very, very noble goal, and it's something we all need to work toward.
Okay. And what, finally, are the initiatives that the university has now in terms of promoting diversity?
Well, some of your panelists today are some of the people that are charged most with promoting diversity, and that is Mr. Freeman, our Assistant Vice Chancellor for Enrollment Management, and Dr. Samuel, our Director of Equity and Diversity. They are charged every day with thinking about how to make our admissions the most fair and just that they can be for all people, and to be sure that the people who are admitted and brought to this campus are treated fairly and with justice. And I trust them to do that. They're outstanding at their jobs.
So we'll talk with them now. Chancellor Brown, thank you very much for being here.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right. All right, let's talk a little bit about some of the initiatives. First of all, Yancey Freeman as Director of Recruitment and Admissions. What is the trend in terms of minority students, and I guess more specifically African-American students here lately?
We have a very favorable trend for African-American students and students of color registering and enrolling on our campus in general. UTC has really enjoyed a wonderful opportunity to enroll those students on our campus, and I think in a lot of ways we sell our institution as an opportunity for students of color if they want to come here and enroll with us and actually graduate. You have one of the single best opportunities to do that, given our graduation rate of African American students in comparison to other four-year institutions in Tennessee. We see African American students graduating at a significantly high rate in comparison to the counterpart white population on our campus. And so we have done really, really well, I think, in many ways. Part of that, I think, is success begets success. And so we have had opportunities to, when it was not the positive thing to do, the popular thing to do, we have forged through to say diversity is something that's very important to our campus. And so we've gone out deliberately to try to recruit and enroll more students of color. What has happened is through their success, now I see folks that I went to school with bringing back their sons, their daughters, their nieces, their cousins. You know, they're coming back to school here and they're enjoying some of that same success, but even at a higher level because there is even more awareness now across the campus. We feel like diversity is such an important piece to the campus. It really does intertwine significantly in what happens in the classroom and the college experience for students.
Okay. Equity and diversity. Dr. Brian Samuel, you are the director of those terms. What basically is that particular office or your particular office designed to do in reference to the overall university?
Well, my office is charged with assisting the university with fostering a climate of inclusion and respect. And when we talk diversity, a lot of times we talk race, but diversity is quite broader. It's much more broader than simply race. There are a lot of things that go into it. People want to be valued and respected regardless of their age, regardless of their ancestry, regardless of, you know, their economic standing or status, if you will. And that's what we try to do here at the University of Tennessee. We believe that, you know, differences create learning opportunities and that all persons in this community have the right and the opportunity to see themselves credibly and to interchange with each other and help learn from and with one another.
One of the initiatives I know over the years, of course, has been to get more African American, more minority faculty members involved in campus activities, not only teaching but in administration and so forth. Where do we stand at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga on that particular situation?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm very impressed with what my alma mater has done here. And as I told the chancellor when he hired me, this is the only job I applied for in the country because it's such a great school. We have about 21% racial minorities, that's all populations, in our entire workforce. And if you wanted to break down by the different EEO categories, I could tell you that probably at the full professor level, there's about 12% minorities, and at the assistant professor, there's probably about 20% minorities. I'm uncertain about the associate, but you know, we do a very good job of recruiting and hiring and selecting good people. You know, we advertise in national sources, the Chronicle, the Higher Ed, We have subscriptions with the American Association of Hispanics in Higher Education. You know, we advertise with a number of affinity groups and organizations that kind of help showcase the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga to where, you know, we're on people's radar.
Okay, very good. This is Point of View, and we are talking about the fact that this year is the 50th year of diversity, of desegregation at the University of Tennessee. And as we mentioned in the introduction, we're talking more specifically now about the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga and what has happened and what is presently happening in terms of diversity. We want to reflect now. We want to start to go back in time and talk with a young lady who is considered to be the first African-American female in the band at UTC. Miss Carolyn Tinker Brown, welcome to Point of View.
Thank you.
All right, let's begin from the beginning.
Okay.
You came what year to the university to enter the band?
Well, I was a transfer student from Hampton University.
Uh-huh.
Decided to come home, and I enrolled here at UTC in 1973.
Okay.
And graduated in 74. I was a music major with an emphasis in composition, and was a member of the band. It was a great experience for me, but one thing that I did notice that I wish I could have experienced that I know the students experience up here now is a sense of community. From what I can tell, everybody seems to pull together to get along up here. And when I was in school up here, the majority of blacks who attended here were so small in number. And we decided the best way to survive was to stay together and stay united. Racially, for myself, the only thing that I experienced negative really came from just two instructors. The students, we got along fine. And you wouldn't know anything was new as far as that step to diversity. But it was a good experience, but like I said, I missed that sense of community that I had experienced at Hampton. It would be nothing to see yourself as the only student in a class that was black. And so when I say we stuck together, we would ask our friends to enroll in a class with us, even though they had no interest in that class. And we did that for survival's sake. So a friend of mine enrolled the second year, female, in the band, so I would have someone to hang out with other than the young men who were there in the band. And I decided to take a air pollution control class with her.
Okay.
And so.
And now you did not live on campus, is that correct?
No,
you commuted.
No, I commuted.
Right. Okay.
Commuted.
All right. Well, now let's talk with a young lady who did live on campus and sort of get some experiences and for reflections from her, Miss Dot Stevens. If you just stand up, please, ma'am. You came to the university what year?
I came in 1968 as a freshman, and just like Dr. Brown, I came from a segregated community. I attended an all-black high school, all-black elementary school, lived in a all-black community, and came to UTC, and there were 4 of us in the dorm at the time. I know that's a little different than it is right now, but there were 4 black females who lived in the dorm, and it was quite a culture shock. But the 4 of us came because we wanted to know a different kind of environment. And so we were able to, I don't want to say that we melted into it, but because I think it was a learning experience for the white students as well as the black students who were there.
Can you give us any negative and or positive experiences that you had?
Well, the thing that I learned from my white roommate, they did not room the 4 black students together. We were paired with a white roommate. The thing that I did learn, which I thought was a little negative, was they asked her if she preferred a black roommate, but they didn't ask me if I preferred a white roommate. It was as if I didn't have a choice, and those kind of things stuck out in my mind, and I think it is still obvious if I can remember it. And it's been about 40 years ago that occurred. And so positive things, though, I think that all of the people who came with the idea of learning how to be in a diverse society, in a community on the campus. And living on campus, we live with diversity. We had meals at Bretsky Hall, which now I understand is a meeting room. It's not even where we eat. And we were different from the students who commuted. We were there 24/7, and I think it really made a big difference in how well we were able to learn to communicate with people. It certainly made a difference for me coming from a small town in Georgia and then adapting to the university in Chattanooga at the time looked like a big city to me. And so we had a lot of students, white students, who came and had never been around black people. And so we had that open kind of communication after we got over the initial shock. And but academically, it was a very good place for me to be. And so that was a good experience.
So how did you find out about UTC? Were you recruited to come to UTC from your hometown or what?
No, actually I looked in this thing called a College Blue Book, and I came from LaGrange, Georgia, which is below Atlanta. I knew I didn't want to go to school in Atlanta, and I looked in the College Blue Book, and there was a place called the University of Chattanooga, which was not Atlanta. And so I thought, well, I'll just go there. I didn't know it was a all-white school until I came for my visit, and that was after I had been admitted. So I didn't know, and I got here, and I asked my dad, who brought me. I said, I don't see any black students. Where are the black students? And we decided that since I've already been admitted, let's see how it goes. And it went well. I've gone to graduate school here, and I'm an adjunct professor in the psychology department now. So
very good.
Worked out.
You made it through.
I guess.
Yes, you did. Okay, before we talk with another young man who's with one of the programs here, the multicultural program here on campus, let's talk with a student. You're a student here at UTC, right?
Yes, sir.
Just stand up and just, your name and how are you classified?
My name is Robert Johnson II, and I'm a senior here.
Senior?
Yeah.
Have you been here the total time?
No, I transferred from a school in Oklahoma. It's called Oral Roberts University, but I'm a commuter here now. I've been here this is my second year.
Okay. From a student's standpoint and perspective, how do you assess the racial attitude here at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga?
Well, coming from a small school in Oklahoma, I liked it a lot better. I saw a lot more minority and white students here, a good mix. Being a commuter, I've been to some programs at the Multicultural Center. They had poetry night. I saw different people coming out having fun together. We had a step show here, and it was a lot of different people here. And I like how the students come together, and it's a sense of community. As far as me personally, I've never had a black professor. So the faculty, that situation, I know he said it was 21% and everything. I've seen, African Americans in the lunchroom, but I've never had one hand me back my paper and say, you got a B+ or anything like that. So that's something I would have liked to have had. But as far as that aspect as faculty, I would like to see that increase a little bit more.
Okay.
So.
Did you come from an all-black high school?
No, I didn't. Not. I grew up in Wisconsin, so it was definitely not all black. But we had black people on the basketball team. But no, definitely not all black.
Yeah. If one were to walk through the campus, especially if people go into the cafeteria, you see what sociology students are going to learn. It's called de facto segregation, not de jure segregation, where you have to separate yourselves or you have to be segregated. But de facto segregation, where it means that you kind of separate because you want to or because of custom. Do you kind of sense that here at UTC, that most black students eat together and sort of play together and all of that? Because they want to, not, of course they aren't forced to, but that's just the pattern of things?
It's funny you mentioned that. I didn't know if I was going to bring that up. But when I first arrived on campus, I walked into the UC, and it's one section. It's at the top, and it's like all the black people were there. And I was like, okay. And then I looked down, and I saw, mostly Caucasian students everywhere. And I was like, what's going on? And then someone walked past and said, oh, yeah, this is Little Africa. And then I was like, oh, okay. So it was situations where I would say, you know, I'm going to sit with my black friends, and I'm going to go sit with some of my, you know, white friends. And then I would bring some of them over into the smaller section. I didn't know why it was going on. I asked my dad about it. He said something, tribalism or something like that. I don't know, different terms. But I don't think it's more like students don't want to be around other races. It's just you're comfortable sometimes when you see someone that looks like you and you might have something in common. So I don't know if that's a problem we need to fix. It's just something that happens.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask Dr. Samuel here. Is that a problem? Is it a concern that there is de facto segregation?
Since the beginning of time, most institutions have historically had that problem. I don't know if you can recall movies such as Higher Learning with Ice Cube and Michael Rappaport and others. Students tend to gravitate to populations of people that they know or that they feel really comfortable with, just as Mr. Johnson was saying. And a lot of times that tends to sit around our racial groups, in some cases our gender identification or what have you, or in athletics, for example. If you look, a lot of times you'll see basketball players, football players. I saw a couple of Greek letter organizations here today. Young lady is Zeta, I think, right? Zeta. And what is yours Greek? Oh, I just said UTC? Okay. Well, anyway, I saw at least one. And you know, that connection, that connectivity, whatever it is that you can identify with, you got your frat brothers and line brothers and whomever, that's where you go.
Okay.
That's where you go.
All right. Let's talk now with Mr. Chris Davis. You stand up, Chris, with the Office of Minority Affairs. Okay. How great is there a need for such an Office of Minority Affairs, assuming that it deals with concerns and maybe even problems of minority students?
Well, Mr. Scruggs, I know over the past few years, before we got the Office of Minority, well, we've always had an Office of Minority Affairs, but before we got the Multicultural Center, some people have been doing a couple of studies to see, you know, where we would need have a need for a multicultural center. And after, you know, doing a few polls and talking with a few students, they discovered that, you know, the students needed somewhere to go on this campus where everybody could have a say-so and find common ground and have open dialogue and get to know each other on another level besides, you know, I'm a part of this particular organization, you're a part of this particular organization, and we're going to stay like that. And so, you know, the purpose of the Multicultural Center is to bring students in and let them all come in and have a good time together, but also learn about each other's cultures, lifestyles, you know, and break down those social barriers that divide us, you know, like in the cafeteria at lunchtime and that kind of thing.
Let me ask you this. What have you found to be the primary concern or maybe the primary adjustment that minority students, especially coming from, for instance, an all-black high school, what adjustments would that student have to make coming to a predominantly white university campus?
That's a good question. I asked a few students about that today, specifically, especially a lot of students from Memphis that come out of mostly black schools, period. And when they come here, it is a culture shock. Because if you live within a certain radius of Memphis City schools, you are in a predominantly African-American school. If you live on a certain side of the city, you go to a school that's more diverse in culture, so to speak. But a lot of students they get here and they have to go with it and they learn, you know, how to have different conversations with students who come from other backgrounds and stuff like that. And it just takes time, and they really work hard. And that's what we try to do in the Office of Multicultural Services is have programs that bring students in so that they can learn how to get along with one another and enjoy each other.
Okay, as we recognize this being the 50th year of diversity or desegregation, I understand that there are some programs that the Multicultural Center is going to have for the rest of this month. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What do you have?
This year, our theme for Black History Month, we put on all the programs every year for Black History Month. And the theme for this year, since we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of UT doing all the African American students coming here, we're having, the theme is taking a look back. And so what we're doing is we're highlighting pioneers such as Carolyn and such as Dot. And we're showing the students where they started and what they had to go through so we could go to UTC and have good experiences and stuff like that. So here, the students will have bookmarks, and they will have stories like Carolyn Brown, Horace Traylor, and a few others integral people that were part of UTC when we started out. And so some of the biggest programs that we'll be having in February 15th, we will have our February 16th, we'll have our Diversity Dialogue series while all the black kids sitting together in the cafeteria. And it's based off the book. And we're going to have a conversation, and we're going to try to address the needs of the problems with Little Africa, and why do the white students sit in the other part, the pit part of the University Center and stuff like that. And so we'll be doing that, and then we'll be having our Black History Month Awards Day and dance on February 17th. And that's something that we'll be highlighting different students who have done things on this campus to be leaders. Okay. And we'll be using people like Carolyn Brown, you know, as awards.
Okay, all right. Well, Mr. Davis, so thank you so very much. We appreciate your information concerning what's going on with the Multicultural Center. Okay, this is the 50th year of the desegregation process that took place back in 1961 with the first African American students entering the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. But we've been talking pretty much locally. We'd like to thank Mr. Yancey Freeman, and also Dr. Brian Samuel, Ms. Carolyn Tinker Brown, Ms. Dot Stevens, and Mr. Davis, and also Mr. Johnson for their participation on today's program. And for those of you who would like to visit the campus of the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, I would think that the Chancellor would welcome your visitation. I'm Booker T. Scruggs, and this has been the Arts and Education Council's Point of View, and we certainly hope that you can be with us again next week for Point of View.
At Property Junction, we buy houses at any price and in any condition. Call the professionals at Property Junction Investors today at 423-591-1242. We can help.
Essential to the Chattanooga small and minority business community.
I became a member of the Tennessee Multicultural Chamber of Commerce because I needed an advocate.
The Tennessee Multicultural Chamber of Commerce assisted over 11,000 members in 2009.
Companies that actually can serve needs that I need for my business.
While awarding over $200 million in contracts to small, minority, and women businesses.
They know who you are, they know what you need.
Become a member and empower your business.